Auto strike has been approved. Let's go here, and this is a video I'll play. Let's see how much. I'm not playing the entire 8 minutes, but let's see how much of this we get through.
If you come in to work for Ford now, you can make more at McDonald's or White Castle.
We're on the verge of one of the biggest strikes of the year.
They want you to accept that they make billions in profits, that the leaders make millions in salaries, and we continue to live paycheck to paycheck.
Right now, the United Auto Workers are negotiating a new contract with 3 of the country's top car companies. And negotiations are looking a lot different than they have in years past.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do with their proposal. I'm going to file it in its proper place.
In an industry where jobs have been getting worse and worse over the years, this contract could be a historic win for 150,000 workers. Or it could be another victory for large corporations over the disappearing middle class. We sat down with workers to get the real story of what they're fighting for and how far they're willing to go to get it. For a long time, a job in the largely union auto industry meant good wages and stability. But that's not really the case anymore.
You can't afford nothing, you're working nonstop and you still can't afford it. And you're at one of the jobs that was supposed to be the good job. You're supposed to be standard setting job, but you can barely make ends meet. A lot of people have had to secure second jobs or part-time work that they can go do.
Part of it is that wages haven't kept up with the cost of living. When adjusting for inflation, workers who are hired now make $10 an hour less than they did in 2007. This never used to be a problem because the UAW contract included COLA, or cost of living adjustments.
His grandfather and my father and the older members enjoyed a cost of living raise since the 1950s. So when we talk about rebuilding the middle class, COLA is an important step to do that.
COLA is essentially a raise that matches inflation. So if inflation is 4%, your salary goes up 4%. GM workers won COLA all the way back in 1948, and in the 1970s, the UAW won it for all members. But when the auto industry collapsed in 2008, the UAW sacrificed these benefits so the car companies could recover.
They came to us for the bailout. We suspended our cost of living in 2007. We were promised that after we helped the companies achieve success, that cost of living would be reinstated. Several contracts after, we're still at the situation where our cost of living was never brought back. So we all feel lied to in that regard.
The big 3 have more than recovered. Ford, Stellantis, and GM made a combined $20 billion in profits in just the first 6 months of this year.
Their wages have been returned. Their profits have been returned. When you see the bonuses and you see the CEO pay, all those things were returned. So did I make the sacrifices so Ford can continue to hire people at speed?
Sorry, I had to turn down my other volume. But the cost of living, this is so despicable here that the cost of living, let me scoot over a little. The cost of living, so they were going through tough times. Just think about this. They were going through tough times. So the workers said, okay, you're going through tough times. We're a family. Go ahead. We can recover. Oh, it's going to come back. And it still hasn't come back. This was 2007 that this started. Let me adjust this here. This will be better. All right, so now let me play it a little bit more. I might be stopping and starting it. So here we go.
At $16 an hour and not return our COLA, I would have struck then.
COLA was not the only benefit lost during the Great Recession. Workers hired before 2009 had pensions, healthcare when they retired, and reached their top wage within 3 years. But workers like Chris, who were hired after the economic crash, didn't get any of that.
So this is like the body shop right here. We stamp all the parts, the hoods, the fenders, all that. I'm a quality inspector, and that's where I park every single day. It took me 9.5 years to get to top pay. And not to mention going through 4 different plants in 2 different states. Even though I'm at parity in wages right now, I have no guarantee of money coming in from a pension, and I have no health care when I retire that's, guaranteed like everyone else.
The UAW is fighting to get rid of this tiered system in which workers doing the same job sometimes have different pay and benefits.
It is hurtful to sit next to people and make less than they do and work just as hard as they do, no matter what industry and what you're doing.
It really puts a wedge between workers on the floor, and it hurts our union. And it's hurt our union for the last 15 years. Ending tiers brings us back to a fighting labor movement.
Right now, the majority of Big 3 workers are considered lower tier workers like Chris.
If I'm going to continue to be a part of this workforce that's making the companies record profits, I'd really like to be able to retire with some dignity, pension and some health care, so I don't have to struggle when I'm, 65, 70 years old.
There are still others who work full-time, but don't even get the benefits of lower tier workers.
I've been working 7 days because I have to, not because I want to, you know what I mean? And I don't think I should have to work 7 days to keep me and my family afloat.
Charles is what's known as a supplemental worker, which is supposed to be a temporary replacement for a full-time worker who's out on leave. But that's not what the companies are doing.
We have no 4-timers. We are the 4-timers. They shouldn't be hiring supplementals to circumvent getting 4-timers, but that's what it seems like this happening.
That's what they're doing.
By abusing the temp worker category, the companies get...
That's what they're doing. And it's typical. They do this in a lot of different industries. They do this with the temp agency. It's the same similar thing, but they do this with temp agencies too. So a company may hire 30 temp agency workers to do some administrative or do some office work, or like I worked at a healthcare industry. I think it was United Health one time, and he hired temp workers because you know what they don't have? Oh, we're getting paid $15, $16. And at that time, I think in California, the minimum wage was 12. Right now it's 14 or 15. Minimum wage at that time was 12, and we were getting paid 16. So it was like, oh, you're getting paid a lot of money. No, they were doing that so that because even though they're paying $16 an hour, maybe that'd be equivalent like if I was getting paid $27 an hour right now, you're paying them less if you're not giving them health care. So it's a way of circumventing certain things. Don't think that they're just doing temp agency just out of the kind of just because they just want to do it that way. They're doing it that way to do something, to circumvent something. And I do want to pause the video to bring up the article, the companion article for this, and then we're going to close out for today. U.S. auto workers vote by 97% for a strike authorization, expressing overwhelmingly determination to reverse UAW-backed concessions. Now, I'm hoping, or I'm assuming that one of those big things is what we were just talking about, that they gave away when the automaker was doing bad and they haven't gotten it back. So it's basically where COLA, I think they call it, where your pay kind of keeps up with prices going up. Not exactly inflation, but it's something similar to that. So let's read a little bit of this article here and see. Workers at the Detroit 3 automakers have voted by 97% to authorize strike action in an overwhelmingly expression of determination by workers to win major advances in wages, benefits, and working conditions. The result was announced by the UAW on Friday, that's United Auto Workers, with just 3 weeks remaining till the expiration of contracts covering 150,000 workers at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. Sorry, not Stellantis. Stellantis. The near unanimous strike vote is part of an ongoing eruption of class struggle internationally, from the months-long strike by tens of thousands of workers and actors in the U.S. to strikes in the airline and transport industries in a number of European countries. And I know they're talking about UPS workers also. Struggles are looming among auto workers on multiple continents, including 150 Detroit 3 workers in the U.S. Another 18,000 auto workers in Canada whose contracts expire September 18th. Tens of thousands of VW workers in Germany and other countries who are fighting against mass job cuts, and 150 auto workers and metal workers in Turkey whose contracts also expire in September. Auto workers in the U.S. are determined to reverse decade UAW enforced concessions, seeking the elimination of tiers and part-time work, a mass pay raise, and the restoration of pensions under conditions where the auto companies are making fabulous profits off of their labor. The auto companies are no less determined to impose mass job cuts and devastating concessions as they transition to electric vehicle productions, and they are again reliant on the pro-company UAW apparatus to contain and demobilize the intense opposition built up in the working class. In this vein, the United Auto Workers apparatus has held a series of practice pickets outside auto plants led by Fan and the other top UAW bureaucrats, accompanied by militant-sounding rhetoric criticizing excessive corporate profits and bloated executive pay. At the same time, though, the UAW is parroting politicians from the big business Democratic Party as the allies of workers, and one of the surest signs that the union bureaucracy is preparing for betrayal. So they're cozying up to the Democratic Party, pretending like the Democrats are for workers, when all you know what that means. If you see somebody from the blue team coming and you're part of it's a sellout coming. And as with the UPS vote, I believe it was ratified. The whole idea is to trick people into voting for these terrible sellout contracts, and it works a lot of times. If you come out and all of your media bought corporate outlets, corporate news, cable news, and saying, look, tentative agreement is here, we avoid a strike, the workers get all these great things, all before a vote is done. It's to psychologically like sort of manipulate the person who's actually voting. They do the same thing with candidates. So yeah, but the energy is there. Regardless if these sellout sort of contracts are being approved, the energy to strike is here.